Good morning, dear students. Welcome to this fourth lecture on the topic electrochemistry of strong electrolytes. And today we are going to discuss Debye-Huckel limiting law. If you remember my earlier lectures, we had divided this topic of electrochemistry of strong electrolytes in these 10 lectures, and so far we have taken up first 4 lectures, and today I am going to take up Debye-Huckel limiting law and its derivation. So let us begin. Debye-Huckel limiting law. From this name, it may appear that it may be some sort of statement stating some law, but in actual it is a mathematical expression that correlates activity coefficient of a given ion with its charge and ionic strength of the solution. As it is a mathematical expression, so we can expect that this lecture may be more or less mathematical because it is about the derivation of Debye-Huckel limiting law. If you remember, the Debye-Huckel theory of strong electrolytes assumes that strong electrolytes are completely dissociated into ions, and observed deviation from ideal behavior are ascribed to electrical interactions between ions in solution. So, due to electrostatic interaction among ions in solution, each ion present in the solution is actually present in the electrical field due to all other ions, and these electrostatic interactions result into extra free energy in the solution, and this extra free energy is responsible for deviation of the solution from ideal behavior, and this extra free energy can be correlated with the ionic activity or activity coefficient, since ionic activity or activity coefficient are also the parameters used to explain deviation of a solution from ideal behavior. So in this derivation we are going to do actually the same thing. We are going to correlate this extra free energy with the ionic activity coefficient. How? I will explain this in the subsequent slides. In the derivation of Debye-Huckel limiting law, as I told, first we are going to calculate the extra free energy present in the solution due to interionic interactions, and then we are also going to calculate what is the potential at a given ion due to its ionic atmosphere, and then we are going to calculate the reversible work done to charge this ion present in certain electrical field surrounded by its ionic atmosphere, and finally we are going to equate the extra free energy with the reversible work done, this extra free energy with the reversible work done to derive the desired equation, that is Debye-Huckel limiting law. So in next coming 2 or 3 slides I am going to take up all this mathematically. Before going to derive Debye-Huckel limiting law, we have to visualize the actual scene of an electrolytic solution, that too a strong electrolytic solution. It is a solution in which n numbers of cation and anions are present in water, though they are free, but they are not independent because each ion is surrounded by a spherical halo of counter ions known as its ionic atmosphere. These ions are moving in random motion, but each ion, even during the movement, has to move along with its ionic atmosphere. So in such a solution, what will be the chemical potential of ith ion? Suppose it is an ideal solution, then chemical potential of an ith ion, that is mu I, can be correlated with its concentration by this equation. But we know electrolytic solutions are not ideal solutions. So what will be the chemical potential of given type of ions in an electrolytic solution? That can be given by knowing the activity of ions, and the relation comes like this. The difference is here, instead of taking concentration into consideration, we have to take care of the activity of ion to calculate the chemical potential. So this ln AI, that is activity, in turn can be correlated with the concentration, and this second equation can be rewritten like this, where activity has been written in terms of activity coefficient of ion and its concentration. So further we are going to separate these two, or we are going to take log of these two quantities separately, and equation becomes like this, where RT ln Mi plus RT ln gamma I is the expanded form of this, that is RT ln Mi gamma I. So what is the difference between chemical potential of ith ion in electrolytic solution and in ionic, that is ideal solution? This difference can be obtained by subtracting these two equations, and it comes out to be this one, that is RT ln gamma I. This is the difference in chemical potential in ideal solution and electrolytic solution, and this difference is the extra free energy per mole present in the electrolytic solution. So how to convert this extra free energy per mole into extra free energy per ion? It is simple. Divide the quantity by Avogadro number, and when we divide it by Avogadro number, it is RT ln gamma I upon Na. When R is divided by Na, we get another constant, Boltzmann constant. So this extra free energy per ion becomes KBT, where Kb is the Boltzmann constant. So this is the first part, that is calculation of extra free energy per ion present in the solution due to inter-ionic interactions. Let us move to second part of the derivation, that is potential at the ion due to its ionic atmosphere. If you remember, we had already derived that the potential at a central ion due to its ionic atmosphere can be given by this formula, where Zc is the charge, that is valency of the central ion, E is the electronic charge, and this K, if you remember, inverse of this K is the thickness of ionic atmosphere. So when total charge on the central ion is Zc into E, the charge on its ionic atmosphere will be minus Zc into E, and ionic atmosphere having this much combined charge will have this psi I potential on the central ion. If we generalize this equation, let us say Q is the charge on the central ion, then the combined charge on the ionic atmosphere will be minus Q. And what will be the electrical potential on central ion due to this ionic atmosphere? Simply it will be equal to minus Qk upon 4 pi epsilon naught. So this is the second part of derivation, that is potential at an ion due to its ionic atmosphere, where Q is the charge on the central ion and minus Q is the combined effective charge of its ionic atmosphere. Now we move to third part of our derivation, that is a reversible work done to charge a given central ion surrounded by its ionic atmosphere. For this, let us consider that central ion was introduced to the solution in uncharged form and charge Q was increased gradually to final value of ZE on it, while it was held at constant potential psi I, where psi I is the potential at central ion due to its ionic atmosphere. Then what will be the reversible work done dW to increase a charge by dQ? It can be given by simple formula of physics, that reversible work done is equal to the charge brought to a certain point into the potential at that point. So dW comes out to be psi I into dQ. So what is the total work done per ion? It can be given by integrating this dW, because it is the total work done to charge the central ion from 0 to its final charge value ZCE. So on integration, before integration we have to substitute value of psi I. The equation becomes like this. Instead of psi I, we have to substitute minus qk upon 4 pi epsilon naught dq. Now we can integrate it between these two limits of 0 and ZCE. So finally value of W comes out to be minus ZC square E square K upon 8 pi epsilon naught. It is the third part, that is reversible work done to charge the central ion surrounded by its ionic atmosphere. Now the next thing is, this work done per ion will be equal to the extra free energy present in the solution. This extra free energy was already calculated in the previous slide. If you remember, this delta G was given as kBT ln gamma I, and now this kBT ln gamma I will be equal to this work which is written here. And since this K, that is inverse of thickness of ionic atmosphere, had a expression like this, so on substituting value of K in this above equation, we get slightly modified equation as kBT ln gamma I is equal to minus Z C square E square, and instead of this K we have substituted the value here. So this is the new form of the equation. On rearrangement we get equation like this. It is slightly rearranged equation where kBT has been taken to the denominator. On further rearrangement we get an equation like this, where root I has been taken out of this bracket, and if we substitute value of Kb, that is Boltzmann constant, as universal gas constant divided by Avogadro's number, we get a better equation where this Kb has been replaced by RT upon Na, and Na after going to numerator gets multiplied with this Na and becomes Na square. So this is the new form of the same equation, and finally we further rearrange it to get an equation like this, where we had taken the constants out and removed the extra denominator present here by taking it up. So this is, we are somewhere in the middle of the derivation of Debye-Huckel limiting law. Now we can convert log at natural base to log at base 10 by multiplying this LHS with 2.303 or by dividing the RHS with 2.303. So the equation takes this form, and here if we write all this thing as A, then this equation becomes simpler as log gamma I is equal to minus A ZC square root I. This equation is one form of Debye-Huckel limiting law which correlates activity coefficient of ith ion with its charge and ionic strength of the solution. Regarding this A, this value of A has some constants as well as some variables like T and epsilon naught and epsilon. Suppose we take water as the solvent, then epsilon naught and epsilon also get fixed for water, and suppose temperature is taken as 298 Kelvin, then T also is fixed. Now we can calculate value of A by substituting values of different constants in this equation, and it comes out to be 0.507 kg upon mole whole power 1 by 2. It means value of A for water at 298 Kelvin is 0.507. This form of Debye-Huckel limiting law applies to the ion of a given type, but it can be modified to get Debye-Huckel limiting law for the whole ionic solution, that is electrolytic solution, instead of cationic and anionic equation form. So how to convert it into electrolytic solution form? Let us see. Suppose there is an electrolyte, 1 mole of it is dissolved in solution, and that 1 mole gives X cations and Y anions. Then by definition, mean activity coefficient will be the geometrical mean of activity coefficients of total number of cations and anions, or mean activity coefficient gamma plus minus will be equal to this thing, and this RHS is nothing but geometrical mean of activity coefficients of cations and activity coefficients of anion. So on rearrangement it becomes, that is on taking log of this equation, it becomes something like this: log of LHS is equal to log of this plus this, but this power comes outside, which is written as denominator. And we know electrolytic solutions are always electrically neutral, and for electrical neutrality, total cationic charge must be equal to total anionic charge. So the equation for electrical neutrality can be written as X into Z plus is equal to Y into Z minus, where X and Y are number of cations and anions, and Z plus and Z negative are charge on them. So this equation can be used in this form, that is x upon y is equal to z minus upon z positive, and this equation can be rewritten as by dividing RHS by y in this form, that is log of gamma plus minus comes out to be x upon y and so, and in next slide we are going to substitute values of these x upon y as z minus upon z plus. So in the equation, instead of x by y, we are going to substitute z minus upon z plus, and upon substitution we get log gamma plus minus in this form. On cancelling out and simplifying the equation, we get log gamma plus minus in a simpler form like this. Now we apply Debye-Huckel limiting law for a given ion. Debye-Huckel limiting law for a given ion can be written as log gamma I is equal to minus a zc square upon I, where zc is the charge on the ion and gamma I is the ion's activity coefficient. So we apply this equation for log of gamma plus as well as log of gamma minus. So we get a new expression for log gamma plus minus as this. Now we just take out some commons and rearrange it, that is RHS side of the equation, we get this thing. If we cancel out the commons from numerator and denominator, we get one more form of Debye-Huckel limiting law like this: log gamma plus minus is equal to minus a into charge on the cation into charge on anion into square root of ionic strength. Since only magnitudes of the valency of cations and anions is considered for calculation, this equation can be rewritten as this form: log gamma plus minus is equal to minus a into modulus of z plus into z minus into root I, and this is known as Debye-Huckel limiting law for the electrolytic solutions, and this was our derivation. And in this equation, as we discussed, A is a constant for water at 298 Kelvin. Value of A comes out to be 0.509. Gamma plus minus is the mean activity coefficient of the electrolyte. Z plus and Z minus are magnitude of valency of the cations and anions respectively, and I is the ionic strength of the electrolytic solution. This is about the derivation of Debye-Huckel limiting law. Now we are going to see what are the inferences from this law and why is it called as a limiting law. Here it is Debye-Huckel limiting law for the electrolytic solutions. It correlates mean activity coefficient gamma plus minus with the valency factor Z plus into Z minus and ionic strength I. What inference can be drawn from this limiting law? It can be inferred that value of mean activity coefficient of an electrolyte decreases with increase in the ionic strength, and this decrease is higher with increase in the valency and decrease in the dielectric constant of the solvent. Now the question comes, why is it that the equation is called as limiting law? So the answer is, while deriving this equation, we consistently assumed that analysis applied only to the dilute solutions. It is not to be expected, therefore, that the equation should hold for concentrated solutions. And the data has shown that the electrolytic solutions having concentration less than 1 millimole per kg, or the solutions with ionic strength less than 0.001 obey Debye-Huckel limiting law. If we carry out an experiment at higher concentrations or higher ionic strengths, we are expected to deviate from this limiting law. That's why it is called as a limiting law. This is all about Debye-Huckel limiting law and its derivation. Here are the references used to prepare this lecture. Thank you very much.